Good afternoon. My name is Hurtado. I'm with Swingle Collins. We have Ryan Brence with STC, Alan Hurtado with STC. Some of y'all know, it's all you don't, but we partnered with STC 2 years ago, 3?
2 to 3.
2 or 3 years ago to bring them on so that we can provide safety services, loss control, whatever you want to call it, but basically we have an outlet where these guys support our Swingle Collins clients in providing safety to you guys. And that can be simply as job site inspections, it can be handouts, it can be a review of a policy, it can be something as, high level as talking about how does it affect your cost. How are you spending money in safety? How can you save money, or how can you invest in your safety program? Because at the end of the day, it's all about bringing everybody home and trying to make your operations as efficient, protect your people, protect your property, protect your equipment, and get everybody home at the end of the day. So they put together a great presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. If anybody has any questions, please ask, raise your hands, just speak up. Very informal. If you need more food, something to drink, go get it. This is just going to be a good conversation, and hopefully have it wrapped up right at 1 o'clock.
Yes, sir. That's the goal.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, Mark. I'm just going to use I'm going to go about the mic today.
Let me turn that off.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Like Mark said, my name is Ryan Brence, and this is my colleague, Alan Hurtado, and we're with STC Safety Training and Compliance. We're really excited to be here today. This will be our third in a series called Food for Thought. And today we're actually doing a lunch, which is nice. So mixing it up a little bit. But today we're going to talk about a very important topic called confidence in the chaos. And I hope that sparks a little interest, maybe a little discomfort. And that's the point of it, because at some point or another, we all experience some level of chaos. Am I right? Whether it is corralling 2 young daughters without my wife while she's out of town this morning, that's chaos. Or more seriously, if you have a serious accident or damage on your job site, it's something that we need as leaders in businesses to work on cultivating, building a near-miss reporting culture so that we're aware of these issues and we know how to respond in case chaos does arise. So, with that, here are discussion points. Here's where we're going today, our key objectives. We're going to talk about psychological safety in the workplace. You may or may not have heard that term, but it's becoming more mainstream in our culture. So we'll talk about that. We'll go into communicating and standing by stop work authority, really how to empower workers within your company. We'll talk about preparing for worst case scenarios through Gemba walks and crisis management drills. And then Alan?
We're also going to talk about effectively sharing and learning lessons from adverse situations. So we'll go a little bit in depth on how to document, how to learn from these things that happen. And then obviously cultivating confidence for all workers at all levels to prepare for and respond for safety incidents. So we're going to talk about what can we do to cultivate that safety incentives so that our workers can report incidents, near misses, and things of such. Okay. So to dive a little bit in, again, my name is Alan Hurtado. As Ryan and I were brainstorming on this topic, we were really putting a lot of thought to, what can we address, what can we point out, what can we dive in and discuss and share with everyone here. And one of the things that came across in this discussion was just an experience that happened to me about 7 years ago at Cintas, which was my previous employer, in just a recent role in safety at the time. We had, at that time, an incident where a older lady had an accident where she collapsed on the floor in the warehouse. And we were just doing a walk with supervisors to check quality, some issues going on in the warehouse. And we get the radio call of a lady that collapsed in one of the departments. So we all rushed to the department. We checked what was going on. We saw that the lady was on the floor. Just maybe 4 or 6 months before everyone, as far as management, had received first aid and CPR training. And at that time when we arrived, the lady was unconscious on the ground. And so my immediate reaction when I arrived, maybe 2 minutes after we got the radio, was to perform CPR. So I jumped on, started performing CPR. 2 minutes into the CPR, the lady's chest just began to feel different, started to get a little bit more soft. So at that point, I started to feel that I was breaking her rib bones, and it was just really uncomfortable. But as I was performing CPR, people gathered around, about maybe 20, 25 in that department, including leadership and management. I'm performing CPR, and there's about 4 or 5 people in that group, in that pile that were certified in first aid and CPR. As I performed CPR, we had already called 911. They were on their way. We were in a big warehouse, so what ended up happening was that the EMS arrived to the opposite corner of the warehouse, and it took longer for them to get to the actual spot. So in total, I was in CPR mode, compression mode, for 17 minutes.
Ooh.
No one offered to help. No one offered to say, hey, let me step in and help you and alleviate you. The only help I got was I was sweating, performing the CPR, and this lady was just cleaning my sweat off because I was just sweaty. And they finally arrived. They got in, got the bed, put the lady on the bed, took her out, took her to the nearest hospital. 2 days later, the daughter came in and told us, or asked for me, and told me that I had saved their mother. And unfortunately, that led to her retiring from work. Her mother was the only thing she had left, so she came, hugged, cried, and said thank you. And from that whole incident at that time, I mean, we gathered so much information, which led to a corporate Kaizen event, which they brought in safety directors, safety managers. They brought us all in, got us in a room, and we basically broke down everything that happened that went wrong, that went right. And that's really one of the biggest learning opportunities in my career, was just knowing what to do or how to help in an emergency. And so when I was talking to Ryan about this topic, I wanted to kind of share that personal event that happened in my early career in safety, which I'm sure everyone here has had something happen where there's been an emergency, an incident, an accident. You're trying to help. You don't know if you're doing everything right or if there's anybody else that can help. The ones that are around that can help might be fearful, scared, in panic. So we felt like today we wanted to dive in and just kind of give just a little bit of different perspectives and knowledge and information that can help hopefully in your organization or with your teams really implement things that can help mitigate and manage chaos when it happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing that. I didn't know that about Alan's story until we started prepping for this a couple months ago. And so when he told me that, I was like, man, we got to share that. That's incredible. And you think about just the human response to chaos, right? We have fight, flight, or freeze. And seems like there, everyone was freezing. If you haven't been through these very stressful situations, you don't even know how you're going to respond. I was in the Army, and I'll tell you firsthand in my experiences that I did freeze in a lot of situations where I didn't know what to do, okay? So the idea here is not to be scared of the chaos, it's to actually run towards it, because that's the only way that we're gonna grow from this, and the only way that we're gonna put systems in place to protect our businesses and our people, okay? So the question is not if an incident will happen, it really is when, okay? Everyone's seen an iceberg before, all right? You hear about the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg when it comes to safety and incidents are the actual accidents or the damage that occurs on your job site or in your warehouses. But below the surface, looming underneath the water, is that huge foundation of near misses, of unreported incidents and accidents that never even make it to mid-manager or the executive level. There's all these recurring instances that aren't being discovered. And in doing so, you're just waiting to hit this iceberg and go crashing down. And so as leaders of your businesses, you want and need awareness of these icebergs. So in order to do that, what we want to go through is, okay, an assessment of why you should consider being more intentional with cultivating a near-miss reporting culture. Okay? So the strengths of that are pretty obvious, right? Risk reduction. That's essentially what we're in here for. Swingle Collins being a risk management, STC being a safety company. We're trying to reduce risk. In order to do that, we need to know when an incident occurs so that we can protect not only our business reputation, but our financials and our people. But it also is going to engage your people. Like Alan said, even though that was a horrible situation that occurred, what happened from that was that there was a group that came together to talk about what happened. Okay? Where were our mishaps? Where were our shortcomings? What are we going to do to fix this? But it also made sure people in that organization knew that they were cared for. Even if it wasn't responded to correctly, at least employees knew that they're paying attention to this. Now the weaknesses of this is of really promoting this culture where, hey, we need you to report every single incident that occurs. Well, of course, first of all, employees are going to have a fear of retaliation. I think that's the biggest misconception for employees is like, oh man, if I put myself out there, if I tell the leaders that my crew had a near miss, well, that doesn't reflect well on me. That doesn't help me in my career path. That doesn't help my guys or my gals on the job. Okay? Also, it could be time consuming. If you're going to produce more reports, then who's going to manage it? Who's going to look after these reports, analyze them, put them in front of a forum, a group of people so that you can talk about it? There's going to be some time associated with this. But the opportunities, as we know, if we are growth-minded, and I would assume everyone that's here is growth-minded, wanting the best for their business and for their people, it far outweighs the benefits of promoting this, cultivating a near-miss reporting culture. Okay? And in doing so, you actually might create best practices for your business. So if you analyze an accident that occurred on your job site and you realize that you have different impediments throughout your job, whether it's equipment, whether it's your processes, your people, their training, well, in doing so, you're going to discover how you can be better as a business. And it's going to also produce innovative ideas, different ways of doing things so you can operate at your optimal level. Okay, so, yeah.
You know, we're talking a lot about job sites and warehouses and this stuff. It also applies to your office if you're, more like Swingle Collins, because they're, white collar business, we're in a big office building. Our IT people run tests for phishing. They don't tell us about it. Our IT people send out emails to try to see if we possibly are clicking on links, because that's a big exposure for us. It's cyber. And so that's another type of, when you're thinking about opportunities and you're thinking about it from, you're not on a job site, you're not wearing muddy boots, you're not in a warehouse, it still applies to everything, every business that's out there.
That's a great point, because oftentimes we are dealing with the more blue-collar type work, whether it's construction, manufacturing, warehousing, but obviously this can apply with the new technology, the new age that we live in, right? So cybersecurity is huge. Okay, finally, the threats to kind of like round it out, the threat of being very promoting of this reporting culture, well, it could create some complacency, right? If you are just churning out incident reports in mass quantity, well then you're not going to be able to really focus on the key incidents that need to be dissected and analyzed for best practices. So it could do that, and also there could be some information mismanagement. When we see all levels of incident reports, some that are chicken scratch and we can't even read the handwriting and it's just little bullet points, to ones that are way overloaded with too much information. We're trying to find that good amount of info that we can take action on and move forward. So that's just an analysis, but overall, obviously the reason why we're giving this presentation is because we believe in the idea of promoting a reporting culture. And so the strengths and the opportunities far outweigh the weaknesses and threats. We just need to be aware of those weaknesses and threats. So now Alan's going to talk about psychological safety.
Yeah, so as Ryan mentioned earlier, psychological safety is a kind of new mainstream term that you guys are probably already heard or start hearing or start seeing. LinkedIn, YouTube videos, TikTok, things like that. But one of the main things that from psychological safety that we have taken away as a safety consulting firm is really understanding why employees do why they do, what the reasons why they do certain things, right? So when we start really digging into this concept, you start understanding that a lot of employees, they really do weigh the risk of their interpersonal risk. Does this benefit me or is it worth the risk, right? And so most of the times we have identified that a lot of employees just want to do the right thing for the company and they just want to do the job quicker, do it faster, efficiently, and obviously with good quality. And these things in their mind, right, sometimes outweigh the actual reality of what's going on. But there's other sides to it where sometimes the employees don't report or don't say something because they feel like, hey, if I'm the one that's always bringing the near misses, the opportunities to improve, or the things that aren't working well, I'm going to be on that list of layoffs or cut the overtime or sent home, or I'll be set as the target that I'm the guy that's always complaining about safety or anything that's a problem. So we start to really analyze what's psychological safety and trust. So when we compare both, right, one of the reasons why employees fail to report is, one is the trust, right? Can I trust that if I say something, they're not going to take my overtime, they're not going to send me home, or are they going to feel or laugh at me or say that I'm just making things up for reasons of not performing job duties? Or, so when we talk about trust, that's one of the big things that we have come across employees is really not trusting the team to say it, right? So they feel like someone's going to target them or someone's going to point them out as an individual you can't work with. When we talk about psychological safety, we're talking about making it a culture where it doesn't matter who you are, what your title is, what your position is, you can always report and say something when it comes to safety. And there's no, you're the guy that doesn't like to work or you're going to be out of the door because you're always bringing things to the door. When we start focusing on really pushing that trust into a more psychological behavior or culture, your company will start seeing a lot more improved safety results, less incidents, less injuries, and really more communication as a team, right? We always talk about building teams that communicate. That's one thing there, and psychological safety that really drives that is pushing the teams to work as a whole to report anything related to safety. So we do have a video in here from Simon Sinek that we wanted to share. It's really good. He's also now coaching more and doing presentation more on psychological safety. So we wanted to share that and make sure that we kind of present that mainstream topic.
Psychological safety of a team. What that means is leaders create an environment in which the people working in a company or people on a team feel safe enough to raise their hand and say, I made a mistake, or I don't understand what I'm doing, or I'm struggling at home and it's affecting my work, or I'm scared, or I need help, without any fear of humiliation or retribution. In fact, they can say these things with absolute confidence that their boss or their coworkers will rush to support them. That's what a trusting team feels like. We've all been on one before. We also all know what it feels like not to be on a trusting team, where we would never admit mistakes for fear of humiliation or getting in trouble. We're never going to say, I don't understand something. We're not going to admit we're scared. We're not going to tell anybody that we're struggling at home and it's affecting our work. We're definitely not asking for help, because these things make us vulnerable or weak and might put us on a short list for the next round of layoffs, or worse, it might hurt my career chances. I won't get promoted because I said I don't understand something. So we keep quiet. Might work in the short term, but over the course of time, a company where no employee ever admits mistakes, or worse, they hide their mistakes, eventually those cracks grow and grow and grow and cause great damage to the organization and its ability to succeed. So this is a leader's responsibility. It's a leader's responsibility to create an environment in which people feel psychologically safe, and if somebody makes a mistake, we can help them fix it. As Alan Mulally used to talk about when he took over Ford Motor Company, you are not the problem, you have a problem. If you can tell me the problem, we can all rally together to help you fix it.
All right, so yeah, when you talk about psychological safety, it's like a bunch of feelings, right? I mean, when I first heard about that term, I'm like, man, that's a pretty fluffy terminology. They're trying to put a little scientific spin on it, but there's a lot of truth that is coming from employees all across the world about how they feel in the work environment. There are statistics that back this up, and so I wanted to share some. Well, first of all, did you know that $600 billion a year is lost on employee turnover? $600 billion. That's a lot of cash. And I say that because what did we talk about in our first Food for Thought? We talked about cultivating a strong safety culture. And the first slide was, who has the biggest impact on the employee's perception of the culture? Who do you think that is? It's their manager, it's their leader, it's their direct supervisor, okay? So, from a benefits of psychological safety standpoint, in 2013, Gallup and Accenture teamed up and they interviewed over 195,000 employees from Fortune 1000 companies. Also, Accenture captured more than 31 million US respondents about the state of the American workplace, okay? And when it came down to psychological safety, here's what they saw, was that there was a 12% increase in productivity, a 27% reduction in employee turnover, 40% decrease in safety incidents, which is the exact area that we're focusing in on today, 57% rise in workplace collaboration, and 74% less stress on the job. And so even though these are the feelings and the perceptions of employees, you can see that it has a tangible effect of their ability to be productive and feel like they're part of the organization, okay? And then Google, if we want to hone in even closer, as one of the largest companies in the world, they did a study in 2014, over 2 years, where thousands of Google employees were interviewed, and they said, it came out, they were trying to figure out what makes the most effective team. Like, what is it? Like, is it goal setting? Is it having processes and procedures in place? Is it reinforcing accountability? And really, after all those interviews, really what it was that they just wanted to feel safe, like given their perspective and being able to feel like they're a part of the organization. So essentially, psychological safety. Out of all those key elements of what makes a team, they wanted to feel psychological safe. So those are the benefits of psychological safety. And then just to drive this home of how to build psychological safety, okay, kind of the bedrock book on psychological safety is The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson, this lovely lady down here. So I've read it, it's a wonderful book, but she talks about 3 key areas that are interrelated about how to build psychological safety in the workplace. The first is setting the stage. This is really where you come out and you let your employees know that, hey, if you see something, say something. You are not going to be retaliated against. You're not going to get negative consequences. You need to let us know. Also, though, it's your time to make sure that you're putting out policies and procedures. So it's balancing between, hey, we want to hear your voice, but also let's make sure we review our company policies, our safety manual, our safety program. If you're not doing both of those things, then you're not setting the stage properly. Next is inviting participation. To Alan's point when he was talking earlier, it's about bringing people together in a forum where they can feel like if they say something, that they're not going to be just the safety guy, the annoying person that keeps banging the door on safety, but their opinions, their thoughts are going to be taken and moved forward. And then finally, responding productively. This is for the company's leadership to take out the key areas while also maintaining understanding of the rules and regulations, OSHA compliance, the standards, and making the decisions necessary. My favorite part from this book is really this this chart, okay? Because these quadrants, if you think about being an employee in an organization, this is a good analysis for anybody. Like, where are you within these 4 quadrants? The two axes are psychological safety, so think about the ability to feel like you can say your case and your perspective is actually heard, versus accountability. So we're going for that top right, obviously. If you have high psychological safety and high accountability, where you're learning, you're growing, you're ultimately being a better business and a better employee, okay? If you have high accountability and low psychological safety, well, you feel like you have to watch your back every single second of the day. I'm gonna be fired if I say something, or Bob, my supervisor, is gonna get mad at me if I keep bringing this up. If you have low accountability and low psychological safety, you frankly don't care. Like, why are you even showing up to work? It's just, I got no drive, and no one even cares to call out the dangers that are in front of me. And then finally, the comfort zone, which is the most complacent, is what we see a lot, is employees that might have high psychological safety because their leader is, oh yeah, I'll hear from you, I'll sit down with you, but they don't hold their people accountable. Well, now you're just being comfortable, and this is where the iceberg goes from the base to the tip, and you break that surface, okay? So now we're gonna talk about how to empower employees.
Yeah, so one of the things that's been around, or the term that's been around a long time, has been the stop work authority. And now you start seeing a lot of safety manuals, company policies, where stop work authority is one of the things that for construction, general contractors want to see. In the manufacturing, you start seeing signage, posters, and even in their handbooks where they're saying, hey, we believe strongly in a stop work authority policy here, which gives everyone the opportunity to stop what they're doing, report that something's going on, and obviously take action and follow up that it does get corrected or it does get addressed in a timely manner. So one of the things that stop work authority does is it addresses that when we say we have a stop work authority, we're saying that if you don't know something, you don't understand something, from safety, from work, processes, from anything within that job or responsibilities that you have, please stop and let us know, right? Anything as far as changes in the workplace that have now become uncomfortable. We're bringing in new equipment, we're changing a layout in our facility. Those things do cause uncomfort among employees, and also, you know, they may cause incidents, they may cause injuries, but in the fear of them saying something, sometimes they don't report it. But having that in mind, that when conditions change, work plans change, letting them know, hey, if you're not comfortable with the new process, the new equipment, or the new layout, let us know immediately. Also, obviously, when equipment is not being used properly, letting them know, hey, if you don't understand how to use the equipment, let us know so that we can immediately train you or take other action to make sure that you understand how to use equipment. Emergency situations, right? So if something happens on the job, so you're running equipment, you're performing some type of work, and something happens, you don't know what to do, let us know, immediately stop, let us know, and we'll address and help you, guide you through that situation. Another thing is near misses. Addressing employees, really new employees, and employees that have been here or been in the company for long term, letting them know if something happens, as minor as it is, if you almost got hit, you almost got hurt, or something almost fell, or a near miss where something truly almost happened, let us know, stop, report it, and we'll address and make sure that we can address in a timely manner and correct it from something major happening. So it's very simple. One thing that you'll start seeing from a safety side or safety managers, we really like to address the stop work authority in 6 steps. Step number 1, obviously the first step is stopping the activity or whatever job duty you're performing, stopping and letting us know, which is number 2, notifying to your leadership that something has happened or something is happening or something you don't understand immediately. Obviously, the third thing is when someone brings something to your attention as a leader, it's important to address it and investigate immediately, right? If you put it on a piece of paper, on a sticky note, and really don't do anything about it, you're really not driving the stop work authority. You're not building that psychological safety that we've been talking about. So it's important that we investigate and then find some way to correct. Sometimes we can't redesign the floor layout, buy newer equipment, or do anything that's going to cost a lot of money, but it might be something as far as training, providing forms, providing extra measures for them to understand what they're supposed to do. So finding some corrective action is always step number 4. Allowing them to go back and see if that's going to help. And if it does help, we won't know unless we follow up, right? So following up with the worker, the employee, saying, hey, you brought this up to us 30 days ago, 60 days ago. How is it going now? How do you feel about the new equipment or the new layout? And it truly does help you drive a stop work authority program within your organization.
Okay, just want to clarify where we are with, because we're talking, we've mentioned incidents, accidents, near misses. Just so everyone's on the same page, we have the definitions, and this may have been more useful at the beginning of the presentation. Either way, here we are. So near misses, as it says, it have the potential to have disastrous consequences. When a near miss occurs, it's the result of unsafe working conditions or employee actions. I think we can all understand that from a terminology perspective. An incident is an unplanned, undesired event that adversely affects the completion of a task. So it disrupts the workflow, okay? Now this could still be an accident, but most of the times these are incidents that are essentially near misses, all right? But essentially just think about that it affects the completion of a task or it disrupts the operation. An accident is where we start to get into that serious mode, right? This is where there's an illness, an injury, there's property damage, and then as per OSHA, there's OSHA reportables and OSHA recordables, okay? So OSHA reportables, this is when you actually as an employer have to notify OSHA is if there's a death, inpatient hospitality, amputation, or a loss of an eye. But recordables are really any type of medical treatment needed beyond first aid, any type of restricted work, any type of transfer to another job duty. Those are going to be the OSHA recordables. And those are important for you all to know as employers and as insurance business leaders. And then we'll talk about company crises, but that could cover a wide span. That covers the gamut, right? That could be cybersecurity attacks. That could be hurricanes, natural disasters. It could be an active shooter. But the thing here is that it threatens a company's ability to operate effectively. So just so everyone's on the same page, here are some key definitions. If you want this presentation so you're aware, we can definitely send it to you.
Yeah, so as we move on, as far as psychological safety, we've already discussed, and we've also discussed stop work authority. One of the big things is obviously when something does happen, what do we do, right? What's the best method? What's the best way to document? Really, lessons learned come from documentation from previous incidents or accidents that have occurred within the organization, or even sometimes learning from other organizations where they had a serious accident that occurred on their project or in their facility. So one of the things that we as consultants try to drive when we're developing a incident investigation program is really the education piece of understanding the 5 whys, or using the 5 whys to understanding why an incident happened and what we can do, right, to address those incidents in the future and prevent them from happening, more importantly. So one of the things that we highly recommend within an organization is really implementing a root cause analysis. So a lot of companies call it differently. Some may call it a 24-hour stand down. They may call it an incident investigation, accident meeting. They may call it even a Kaizen event where you get everybody together and you sit down and discuss this event and see what we can do. But really the big important piece of the root cause analysis is exercising those 5 whys. What happened, or who was involved, what happened, where, when, and why, right? Exercising that when an accident happens and really documenting, every component possible within that accident or in that situation when it occurred. Other things is the documentation of witnesses, right? We learn more when something, when someone's in the middle of an incident or someone was involved, right? You were operating the forklift and you ran into the wall. You don't really know what happened. Your mind was blank, or you were just, thinking about other things. But someone around you was looking and was observing everything you were doing, and kind of gives you a lot more insight of what happened. Documentation of, witnesses, anyone that was there that saw what happened or that can give us additional information is always very important when we're trying to really figure out lessons learned from an accident. And then establishing procedures for reporting, right? We definitely want to know about every incident, every near miss, but we also want to know that if an employee has an incident or near miss, who do they go first to, right? Who do they report, and what do we do with that report, and what do we do to address it company-wide? We come across this all the time, especially in construction, right? You may have 7, 10, 12 crews. We have an incident with one crew in Rockwall, but the other 8 crews around North Texas never hear about it, never find out, right? They never know what happened with that crew, which can help them, right, learn and prevent something from happening on their projects. Same thing with facilities. If you have a warehouse in Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida, something happens in Texas, it's important to also communicate that to all other branches so that we can learn and share that information. Because information when it comes to accidents is very valuable, right? The more information we can share, it could be one thing that can help us prevent a major accident or even, God forbid, a fatality from happening at work. And obviously, we want to make sure that we're delegating responsibilities across the organization. If we have a safety manager or a risk manager or operations manager, obviously when something happens on the project or in the facility, they won't be able to do all the work, right? An accident happens, sometimes it's expected the safety guy takes them to the clinic, calls the clinic, submits the paperwork, reports out what happened, makes a whole full documentation report, and then sometimes we have to notify their family. They're expected to do that. So really dividing the responsibilities where everyone can be involved and help alleviate all that pressure and also work that comes when an accident does occur on a job site or even in a facility or office setting.
Awesome. So Alan talked about how to respond to an incident, how to get that information, but how do we proactively prepare for something that happens? Well, something that at STC that we've started doing are these crisis management drills. And you see these different screenshots. This is actually from our platform where we run our reports on the left-hand side of checkpoints of what to do in different scenarios. And then obviously you see here on the right, our buddy Bob here in the bottom left corner, who is well equipped. He's got his PPE on, but he had a massive fall. And so we're having, the crew's having to respond to him and actually do CPR. We're not trying to break our buddy's ribs right here like Alan was doing during that incident. So we kind of go back and forth between live and using the dummy. Either way, here's the situation, is that companies are on a different scale of being prepared for crises. Some have no idea what to do. There's no policy in place. They've never even seen any type of protocols for how to respond. Well, that might be a great company to run a drill on. Now you want to be organized with how you roll that out, but you want to see how companies respond, right? Others, like this company that we partner with right here, a general contractor, they've gone through 15 or 20 of these drills. In each iteration, they're learning about how do we best delegate roles and responsibilities. Who's going to call the higher level, the executive level, to notify them? Who is going to be the main liaison from the emergency services to the victim? Who is going to be actually conducting, taking care of the treatment of the victim? These are all things that if you're not talking about it, when it hits the fan, then people are going to fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? So crisis drills have been very beneficial for our business model to help our clients, because the most impactful aspect of this is on the aftermath. We call it the after action review. It's actually some military terminology, but that's some of the most effective uses of our time, because that's when we get that gold of, man, like this happened and I freaked out and I didn't know where the AED was or the first aid kit. Okay, well, let's put it in a better position, right? Or hey, Bob, you be the one that always goes to get that first aid treatment or the first aid kit. Like these are some of the conversations that seem like they're simple, but until you actually get in a conversation, they don't get pinpointed. And so we've really enjoyed doing these crisis drills. And then from a more general industry, like warehouse perspective.
Yeah, so initially I started with the story of, this incident happened, this lady was rushed to the emergency room, she made it alive, is all well now. But one thing that came out of that incident was corporate-wide, Cintas implemented what they call gimbal walks, which is every morning and shift change. What was happening is the supervisors, managers were walking the warehouse to basically observe the task that's going on, work that's going on, and make sure that you understand the work that's happening. Sometimes we're project managers, we're supervisors, we really don't understand what the guys actually do or gals do to actually complete the job. The gimbal walks obviously educate you by observing the work processes, understanding what's happening, and if you see something that hasn't been done before, you stop and you say, hey, why are we doing this now? What's happening or what has changed? So gimbal walks are really educational walks where you're walking with your team, you're taking notes, you're observing, like I said, the processes. It usually involves your supervisor and managers within the organization. And they focus a lot on processes, identifying inefficiencies, gathering feedback, also from workers. So you walk a project and you see a guy that was lifting boxes with a handler one day, and then the next day they're doing it manually, and then that should raise a flag and say, hey, what are we doing now? You might find out that the handler might be broken down or out of service or someone else is using it. But you identify things that aren't really common in your processes that could also create chaos, incidents, accidents, or emergencies if not followed as they should. Also, it helps engage in your employees and it helps you collaborate with them, right? You don't divide that line where I'm the supervisor and I'm the employee. We're all one team, right? My responsibility as a supervisor is to make sure that you're successful, and if you have anything that you need from me, I'm part of that team as well. So you're driving that message where your psychological safety culture-wise is being really implemented as a whole versus just paper, and we're saying we do something but we're not really following through. And then a gimbal walk also helps you identify ways to problem solve, right? Sometimes we see that guys are just doing something where it just looks like it's taking a lot more effort than it should. So when we find things like that, we say, hey, we probably need to find a better tool, a better process, or better equipment to get the job done. So this table here kind of helps you, find the effective gimbal walk. So on the left side, you'll see the green, which is from the top, says conduct the observation of employees in the actual workplace. That's obviously the main goal is observe the employees. Ineffective gimbal walk on the right, making assumptions or gathering information while in conference room or in meeting room, right? So superintendents, project managers, or even facility managers, production supervisors, right? Sometimes you're trying to figure out a problem from sitting in your desk and seeing why we're not meeting the goals, production goals, or why incidents are happening. Sometimes it may be just go out there and see what's happening and see what has changed. Maybe new employees don't know what they're doing. Maybe the supervisors aren't really up to speed on what we expect. There's a lot of things you can learn from that. Second point here on the table is make observations, take notes of the processes being performed. Obviously know what you're doing as an organization and the processes involved. And then ineffective is judging the work of employees and thinking that what should be corrected on everything that is wrong. So going out there and saying, hey, you don't do that, you're not supposed to do that, that's wrong, who taught you that? You're not going to work long if you're not doing the job as we taught you. That type of behavior really just drives the message down, right? It doesn't help really develop and see what's happening in your day-to-day operations. Third is get insight from workers and learn. Sometimes these workers have ideas like, hey, like we're having to cut these bags with this cheap knife. You know, I know of a knife that's a lot better and it's going to last you longer and it's going to save you money, right? So you won't get that information if you're not talking to the employees. So an effective Gemba walk involves you and it helps you get involved with the employees to understand what ideas or observations they have. If we're going out there on a negative side, just looking and saying, that's not right, why are you taking so long, or you're not doing it right, then we're just, you know, again, just beating up a dead horse. We're not helping. We're not trying to find a solution to that problem. Ask what happened, ask what approaches and methods work well and which need improvement. Sometimes they'll tell you, hey, by the time we get to this point on the production line, it goes really smooth. But it's something about stamping labels, stamping invoices or work orders, or even on a construction site, right? We get the material on time for the job site, but it's when it comes to unloading that we take a whole day or 2 days because we don't have the right equipment, right? Approach the employees, ask them what's easy, what's faster, and what can we do to get better and efficient in those areas. And then providing personal opinion and showing biases. So you going out there and saying, hey, this is the way that we've done it for 30 years. This is the only way. Go out there and do it as we said from the very beginning. So we want to make sure that we're not being that type of person that could drive that Gemba walk ineffectively.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. So ILLs, that's been another key term for us called incident lessons learned. So like we talked about, we want to learn from these incidents. We want to be proactive and prepare for incidents, but when they happen, how do we most effectively share those lessons learned? There's a great quote by Ernest Hemingway that says, "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self." Okay, I really like that because that applies both personally and professionally. All right? The fallacy is that, oh, nothing's ever going to happen. We don't have to worry about it. Like something's going to happen. And instead of us just judging ourselves and feeling down that we have a higher EMR or we've had more incidents from last year, really we have to be growth minded and find ways that we can get the word out. Okay? So these are pretty self-explanatory, but the way you do that, you start implementing written reports like we talked about, make sure they know the process, what report to use, and who to send it to. And then we're also doing leading indicators, meaning we're doing more inspections, we're doing more trainings, we're doing more reviews of the policies and procedures. Those are going to help us learn. Safety communication, doing newsletters like here to the right, whether it's on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, sharing what happened. Safety stand-downs or trainings are pretty self-explanatory, addressing the issue. And then safety committees or focus groups. That's where you get key representatives, ideally from all levels of the organization. The line worker, the mid-manager, and that executive level, all on the same page as, hey, what were the mishaps here? How do we learn from it? Okay, those are the lessons learned. And yeah, go ahead.
So cultivate confidence through continuous improvement. So one of the things that now in the industry of safety, through ANSI, one of the biggest programs that they're driving now, it's a program called ANSI Z10, which is basically a safety management system that just tells you as a company how you should lay out your safety program as a company, right? So establishing committees, establishing training, putting implementation of programs. So one of the biggest things that comes out of that is really implementing safety or enforcing safety practices in the workplace. And they use this term called Plan, Do, Check, Act, which basically it's kind of like your Gemba walk, but this one's a little bit more strategic, where as a committee you sit down and you look at, hey, where in our organization do we have most of the risk and where do we have most of the incidents? So we plan on, hey, let's plan on our problems, see what we can do to help reduce incidents or reduce risk. Then we do by implementing, like I said, procedures, equipment, new structure of processes and layout of the workplace. And then we check the results, right, by making sure that we're following up and making sure that if there's anything that does need to be addressed or recorrected, we can act based off the best solution to the idea that came in to help that process or that work area. So when it comes to the plan, do, check, that, it can be applied to training, it can be applied to programs, it can be applied to project management, to deliveries, to how to install a new type of material or equipment, as far as any scope of work that you guys perform. But that's basically on a continuous improvement cycle. It's really one of the ideas that you guys could also take in and focus on is, how do we plan, how do we do it, how do we check, and how do we act if there's any deficiencies or improvements that we can do.
Yeah, that's really a bedrock of the whole safety system, which is what we talked about in our last presentation that we did here. So really, just to sum it up, these are the main points that we talked about. As I'm putting these up on the screen, the main idea here is, Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. Sorry, if you fail to plan, then you are planning to fail. I said that right. But another thing that I really liked, and I mentioned it last time in our presentation, was from James Clear in the book Atomic Habits, right? And he said that you do not rise to the level of your goals. So you can set lofty ideas of that we're not going to have any incidents, we're not going to have any issues in our environment. But really, you're going to fall to the level of your systems, which, he talked about habits. You're going to fall to your habits. Well, if you don't know how to respond, if you haven't worked through that, if you haven't talked through that, then there's going to be chaos. That's inevitable. Chaos is going to be there. We're just hoping that we provided some tactical, some practical ideas that you can go back and start to begin to implement so that all your people, all your workers can have more confidence in the workplace. So I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. This is us on social media. If you have your phone, you can pull out your phone and scan this. Madison's here. She's on our marketing team, and she puts out content on a weekly basis. So if you want to follow us, we'd love to see you on social media. Here are some resources: Swingle Collins website, our website, and then OSHA. We talked about safety management systems. That'll give you more information on that plan, do, check, act approach. And then Mark and Cheryl. So just kind of rounding it out with you, Mark. So
thank you guys very much. I mean, this is, as I said earlier, there's a lot of talk about construction sites, warehouses, and stuff like this. Every one of us has a lot of risk. I mean, we've got, employees driving cars, going to meetings, coming to one of these events. What happens if someone in your office building falls down and starts having a stroke? It's a terrible thing to think about, but this stuff does happen. How are we all going to react when all of a sudden there's a catastrophe that's happening in our workplace? I've been unfortunate enough to have dealt with a couple in a previous career, and like Alan said, it's life-changing. So anyhow, thank y'all very much for coming. If anybody wants more food, get it. Hang out as long as you want. If you have questions, reach out to any of us, reach out to any of the guys here at Swingle that you work with, and we'll be planning another one of these probably first part of the year, so be on the lookout for that. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, man. Yeah.